brief going through these. I'm not going to be reading lots of text or whatever, and this will be recorded, so if people want to go back and look at it in detail, they can go back and look at my presentation. But anyway, what this is about is questioning what are the questions and concerns about the management that's going on Miles Standish State Forest, and some of the issues have been talked about already. So I'm going to just fill in some gaps. Next, please. So this is the kind of thing that's going on in terms of actually underground management that David was talking about. Next, please. And here's the result. And the main reasons are, as has been mentioned, that this is being done is to reduce wildfire risk and intensity and to restore pitch pine scrub-like barrens. Next, please. And so David mentioned this report that we did, this paper, and what we did is we looked at 500 references on these issues, related not just on Miles Standish. Okay. But also the whole issue of intensely
This always happens. Technology.
No, I think it's charged, the battery is. So anyway,
I'll have to talk. I can talk, that's fine.
Yeah.
So we looked at the whole issue that David was talking about intensively managing intact forests, early succession of all the young forest species, and in the Northeast and the upper Midwest. So that included Massachusetts. Next, please. So the point is as David pointed out, and George has too, is a huge difference between an intact forest that's left alone and allowed to proceed as nature takes its course, and with intensively managed forests. So this is the, thank you. This is Miles Standish State Forest, and the left side is forest that's been allowed to grow for a number of decades. Now on the right is an area that was intensively cut and burned and was burned again, I guess, recently. Next, please. And this is a slide that David showed, and I'm only doing it again because it's really important that the goal here is to reproduce an abnormal period in terms of the long-term ecosystem that occurred in the late 1800s through middle 20th century. And what happened is a lot of species that were uncommon in New England, of course, when you cut it over and they love that habitat, they're going to move in from open habitats in other places. And that's what happened. And there are some species, in fact, that weren't even here probably before 1600, and they moved in from other places. But the thing is, these species, in our paper, we couldn't find any species that are being specifically targeted for this habitat management that are endangered throughout their range, that are in danger of becoming endangered, that are extremely rare throughout their range. These are species that, some of them are rare in Massachusetts, but that doesn't mean they're in trouble throughout their normal range. Next, please. Here's some examples. Woodcock, meadowlark, rough grouse, New England cottontail. These are species that there's no credible evidence that we could find that these species are in danger. Some of them really went down in numbers as the forest grew back, because that's the normal habitat. Next, please. New England cottontail is an interesting example because if you look at this map, it shows this, and this is pretty much guesswork because we really don't know, nobody knows how many of these rabbits, the cottontails there are. But basically, as the forest was cleared, there was more and more habitat, so they went from being relatively having small part of the habitat, part of the landscape, to going up and up and up to the north, even to Maine, where they weren't probably there before 1600. Trouble is, they compete with the eastern cottontail, which was introduced, and but they look the same. There's nobody but a super expert can tell unless you actually examine them or look at their DNA or whatever. We're told that the species is endangered, but number one, we don't know how many there are because they're really hard to count, and number two, they look the same as another species that's common. They're hunted. You can go out and shoot cottontails in Massachusetts, and there's no bag limit. You might be shooting an endangered New England cottontail. Who knows? If they're really endangered, why are we hunting them? It's nuts. But they're creating 25-acre clear cuts. They're just clearing the forest 25 acres because supposedly this is great habitat for New England cottontails, but actually there are papers, newer papers, that are saying, you know, we took a look at it actually on the ground, and it's not clear that this is even all that great for New England cottontails. In fact, it may be better for eastern cottontails. So it's probably just the rabbits were never all that common to begin with, and they're returning to normal populations levels, excuse me. But the point is, we're doing this radical changes in the ecosystem, and really we don't even know if it's helpful, hurtful, what's going on. Next, please. And David talked about old growth forests. Here's a graph from our paper. You can see on the left, before 1600, almost all the forest was old growth forest. 1977, there was virtually no old growth forest, or close to old growth. Today, the forest is recovering, so there's a little bit of old forest or close to old growth, but we're way down from what the original forest was. So why we would prioritize creating artificial early successional forest and not old growth forest, really, it's very questionable. Next slide, please. So there are lots of problems too. That's the thing, is we're doing this management, and it has a lot of collateral damage. Invasive species, next. It disrupts the climate because when you change the forest cover, it's hotter, it's drier. The temperatures are a couple of degrees hotter because of that. Also, water, the hydrology changes. Next slide, please. Carbon release. When you log, it releases most of the carbon pretty quickly in the forest. This slide, the bright green is the forests that have the most carbon. And interestingly, most of Mass is green. This region is not. And that's because there's been a lot of disruption, and it hasn't recovered like it has in a lot of places in Western Mass as much. If we left the forest alone, the amount of carbon storage would double, probably, because of the capability of storage. Next, please. The other problem with burning is it pollutes the air. It spews out a bunch of smoke. That's a public health threat. It pollutes the air and water. And as George pointed out, it produces more smoke than wildfires because the area is unlikely to probably burn anyway, so you're just creating a fire that was unnecessary. Next, please. There are a lot of health impacts. I won't go into detail, but it's been well documented that smoke from fires, it creates a whole bunch of health problems for people. Next, please. So the better alternative, I think, is to allow natural disturbances wherever we can, especially on public lands where we don't need to be doing disturbances and intensive management. And we need a lot more information because, as I pointed out with the New England cottontail, we really don't know that much about what's going on with that species. We don't know where it's all headed with climate change. We should protect big tracts of forest. And there are cases like, as George pointed out, there are some situations with fire where when you have people living near the forest, you want to do what you can to protect homes and so forth, but logging back way back away from those homes is not going to do you much good. Next, please. So anyway, E.O. Wilson, the legendary biologist, was supportive of this strategy of protecting forests as reserves, including Miles Standish State Forest, which is a reserve but isn't fully protected. Next, please. So I think we should let Miles Standish look more like this than it's looking in the areas that are managed and protected. Next, please. So, thank you. We're going to have a question and answer later, but I would be happy to, if folks want to email me or whatever, I'd be happy to answer questions, and so thank you.